Hey, friends. Tell me in chat, can you hear me? Can you hear me, chat? Got that little delay, so it takes a minute for us to arrive to the future. Hey, you, Schwarmer, good to see you, friend. Michael and Chad is here. Excellent, thank you. Big show today. Real big show. Now, if you remember, Duke's joining us. We're going to be hanging out and talking about all kinds of good stuff. But we've also got Malcolm Sheppard as a special guest. But as you see by the title, and then there were three, we've added another, I'll say, a reoccurring cast member, a person who will be joining us. I've decided that we're going to call this the Creative Collaboration Series. And what that means is that we'll get the best and brightest of the land to join, and we're going to hang out for as long as a particular project takes. In this case, we are working on the Kaiju battle map. And if you recall, it is a massive dragon that, massive, that it's so big that people have created a city in the mouth, in the maw of the dragon, and another city atop the mountain-like spires of its wings folded kind of back on its back. And it's in the ground a bit. It's either undead or sleeping, or maybe dead. Who can say? But as we started to get through all this process, we thought, you know what, we need to add another brain to the mix. Of course, we have this brain, not that brain, this brain. Hi, buddy. Yeah, you're here with us.
Is it me? Is it me? Is it my brain? It's my brain? Ooh, it's my brain. Hi.
How are you?
I am horrible. I just came out of a pretty bad flu, but today, luckily, I am okay enough to have a voice and not look super horrible. So here I am.
Well, listen, we've got somebody who is joining our little crew here that will pick up the slack for both of us. I want to introduce everyone to our dear friend and yours, the one, the only, Rain LeBeau. How are you, my friend?
That's me.
I said Rain, and I meant Ren, and then I also
Ren, you got it.
And I also need to do this.
Hey, here we are. Hey, Ren, welcome to the crowd.
Good to see you, my friend. There we go.
I did it.
Thank you so much for joining us, friend. You're
always a pleasure.
As a prolific publish person through the Age Creators Alliance, you've got products over in the Drive-Thru RPG store. You have been a stalwart fan of ThursdAGE and hanging out, and a good friend to Green Ronin for many years. Podcast and all kinds of good stuff. Yeah, so look at that. That's old school.
Almost forgot I was wearing this today.
I love it. Freebooter. Yeah. Yeah, and so, you were like, hey, that seems kind of fun. And I was like, yes, immediately, join us. And so you'll be hanging out with us as we kind of create some stuff. And it is just our luck that today our other dear friend and frequent guest here on ThursdAGE, Malcolm Sheppard, has agreed to join us to share his thoughts on our ideas and sort of give us a little insight into the design philosophies. And I know we've got plenty of questions, but Malcolm, thanks for joining.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
So the first thing is that this thing reminds me of an excellent fantasy novel that you should read. Well, more of a stitch up, called The Dragon Grial by the late Lucius Sheppard. Different name, spelling, no relation. But he was an amazing fantasy and science fiction author, and he wrote a series of stories about dealing with an enormous dragon that are just fascinating. And
I love that. I love that.
I recommend that. And
what was the title once more?
The Dragon Griaule. It is Griaule.
Found it by Lucius Sheppard. Great.
Yes.
Lucius Sheppard. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. His work kind of drifted from science fiction to fantasy to magic realism. I find, as a person who makes things, that often, like, you want to make sure that you're consuming the right media.
Yes.
First, right? So, so that's what I would recommend in terms of giant dragon media. The other one this is about a dead giant dragon, Adrian Tchaikovsky, who you might know from writing a bunch of science fiction, very prolific author. Children of Time, I think, is the big one that he did. He wrote,
I read
He wrote this novel called Redemption's Blade, and it is basically a novel about what happens after you defeat the classic Dark Lord, right? But there's a very vivid thing because the protagonist returns to the place where she killed this dragon that the Dark Lord raised and tortured from birth, and it was this enormous creature, and she eventually killed it with a magic sword. And now she goes back because she is supposed to meet someone inside a pub in the dragon's skull, and the dead dragon's skull. Right?
Yeah, this is that vibe for sure. Yeah.
Metal.
I love that. David Bullock mentions Polly Kidd has a similar thing in her Delver.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah.
Polly Kidd is a super cool creator, and she was known for what she does. She designed this swashbuckling RPG that is like well known when you don't have a middle-aged brain that I have. That has a card-based dueling system and has like fawns and centaurs as player characters.
Is it the mouse one?
No, it's not the mouse one. It is something
Greyhawk,
but it's got a kind of magic musketeer kind of thing.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Checking out the lots of published works. That's great.
Yes. I just want to see what's come on.
Love it.
Lace and Steel, that's the one.
Lace and Steel. Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so this is Malcolm. This is quite yeah.
So, first of all, books are good.
Yeah, books are reading might help. But yeah, so this is exactly why we invited you to kind of hang out with us. And now I gave you kind of the rundown of the deal, and there, one of the things that we're unsure of is, the dragon state. But what we'll do is kind of, if the ideas thus far is that the dragon is we know it can move, and it creates cataclysmic kind of tremors and things, and that could be because it's decaying, or that could be because it wants to roll over, or it farts in its sleep, or whatever. Well, and then we've got go ahead.
I don't think it can move too much, or else you wouldn't build anything on it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
There has to be some regularity to what it does, because if it just like every once in a while jumps around and stuff, right? Then you also can have a viable community.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, first of all, what is the city? What part of the city's public works is responsible for dragon damage repair?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, there probably is a maintenance crew that takes care. Like they're brushing its teeth, and they're
and also
shoveling out the
line. To be like kind of buried partly in the underground or something.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
So that means there must be dungeon-like access tunnels.
Yes, through the mouth we've been talking about.
And also voids
dragon
that open up in space when it moves around, right?
Right.
So, obviously you gotta have people who check that out.
Well, one of the things that we talked about, Malcolm, is that so the state of the dragon is really a good question, and looking at sort of the various states that it can be in, so dead and petrified, or or in a deep slumber and somehow, not moving and, for millions of years, or moving cyclically. We talked about there, like maybe there's lore from the, days beyond measure that, that there was some kind of cataclysm or something. It could have been even the landing of the dragon, frankly. And then or it could be that this is an undead, kind of tied to the earth, sort of a creature, to the land or the planet or whatever, and that perhaps waylaid by a cult or some kind of magic that bound it. But I was thinking about, in that case, that would really, wouldn't you imagine that a city built within the mouth of an undead dragon would have a vibe?
Yeah.
Maybe a little darker, sinister kind of vibe.
Darker,
Yeah.
I wonder if the dragon isn't immortal, but it just takes a long time to recover.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a cyclical thing in that, like, the gods, this is the great, personification of the abyss, Tiamat figure. And every once in a while it goes up and it fights the gods, and the gods smite it and it falls. And then people build a civilization around it. And then gradually it recovers and it starts to move more and more. And then eventually it leaves and fights the gods and is struck, falls down over and over. I like
that.
And it might even be that people know they're on borrowed time. Certainly it wouldn't be the first civilization to, like, go along with its own eventual destruction by environmental means,
like Florida,
do something about, but chooses not to.
Right. Yes. An allegory. Yeah.
And this is the other thing too, right? To make it like less of like, oh, what about this bit, right? Is one thing that can really anchor you is to figure out what this thing is about thematically, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So whether it's undead or not, like, or immortal in this cycle thing, or, a lot of it is going to be like, as you said, Troy, it's going to partly depend on the atmosphere you want, but it's also going to depend on the theme, right? So is there an overarching idea or message, right? And it seems, I know people like, oh, they're kind of allergic to the idea of having structured dramatic elements in games nowadays, because the idea for a long time, well, since the 2000s, has been, oh, we just put everybody in this dungeon-shaped box and we see what happens. And if you provide any impetus or direction to that, you're railroading and you're a bad person. Well, that is nonsense. And what you should and also people are free to interact with a theme on their own terms in a role-playing game too, right? But you have to give people something to chew on, right? So in the case of, the city in the skull of the undead dragon, certainly, like, once you define its nature, right, it suggests lots of themes to do with the, preciousness or perhaps the cheapness of life, right? Because if basically the city is created through some form of, like, convenient necromancy or industrialized necromancy, that means that bodies become raw material, right? Especially if, and that could be bodies of all kinds, right? Or it could be that dragons in this setting have a special thing to them, mainly, maybe it's because they absorb energy in ways other than eating, which makes it easy to spark them up and make them go again, which means that, maybe dragon-related creatures don't like the people who live in this city, because they see anything that's dragon-like as a raw material to build an automaton or to use their bones to make a house, right?
Right, yeah, the teeth.
Because there's some special magical property of dragonness, right?
Right.
But that would be if you wanted a very, that would be if you wanted a somewhat cynical feeling. If you wanted something where, people have an acceptance of death, right, in a more healthy way, right? You could go for more of like the perky goth undead dragon city.
Okay.
Right? Where there's a, carnival type vibe, because the environment they live in is constantly reminding them of
short,
life is ephemeral, but the effects of their lives continue on, just like the dragon's bones, right? So if you zero down into a theme, then the material choices you make to support that theme are going to become obvious, right? Because you need it, don't just need it that color, you need it to fill a certain purpose that you have.
Yeah. I love that. So okay, Ren and Duke, we're going to be living in this space and kind of creating around it and in it and all of that. When you think of the theme, what are you hoping to kind of create or create in?
Would you want to start, Ren, or should I?
Sure, I can start.
Okay, you go.
Yeah, well, I think when I started writing down my ideas and my notes for this, I went for something, I guess, a bit more that the dragon is alive. And I think I ended up going for the dragon is so massive that we can't feel the things that it does, except sort of as like peripheral. Like when the dragon sort of breathes out, we get a wash of its elemental breath, and it creates the seasons as it passes over us.
Oh,
Or
that
that it's
large, I see. Yeah.
that its body is so big that it's that like buildup around its body has created something akin to like soil and rock that if you dig down deep enough, you eventually find dragon scale.
Yeah, right.
Because I think I was following a lot of folks who are saying that having like multiple countries that exist on this dragon's body.
So this is an ecological metaphor.
Yes,
It's a whole
yes,
biome,
exactly.
yeah.
So many things.
Yeah.
So many things jump up from that. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, so that was actually kind of what I was going for, is that now it's the question of this dragon is alive, so how do we treat it? How do we respect it? How does it react to us? I actually really like the idea of playing with oh goodness. The mechanic goes by several names. In Expanse, it's the Churn, Fantasy Agent Peril, and Blue Rose Rising Shadow. But making that maybe represent the dragon's attention to you. Maybe having to tweak what exactly causes the tracker to go up. Maybe taking specific non-environmentalist actions, or maybe actions that where you draw upon the dragon's power, maybe in like either a painful way or a destructive way, or for destructive purposes, or purposes that this particular dragon does not care for.
Right. So do you see this as a kind of an eco-utopia, a symbiotic more of a relationship than because the other way is sort of parasitic.
I was originally going for more of a that we all, we're living on the back of this dragon. We can't get off by this point. So we're gonna have to, we're all gonna have to live together somehow.
What are you gonna do? There's a dragon.
Right. Yeah,
exactly.
Right. So is this dragon, I mean, is it on a planet, or is it traveling through, like, are we have you explain that to me just a little bit? Like,
honestly, I was going more towards like planet-sized dragon, like dragon that's got its own gravity well. He's so chunky.
That's what I thought. Yeah, right. Big chunky solar system, sort of occupying dragon. Well, so
gotta get out of the gravity shadow before you jump into hyperspace. All I'm saying.
Right.
You gotta.
All right, Duke. What do you think? How do you feel about a sort of planetary kaiju?
Planetary kaiju is a great idea because it informs like the entire environment, like of the world you're playing on, basically. So that has so many implications that you can play with, like changing all kinds of resources into like dragon themed things, like
I also like
instead of
I like that there's a consciousness as well that is sort of saying it seems symbiotic to me. Stormer's asked a question here real quick that is, would the dragon be aware of the beings living on it, though, if it's that massive? Kind of, maybe not. I mean, I don't know.
Probably not. I mean, it's I guess it's not awake.
Okay, has anybody? Well, okay, so who aside from everybody at Green Ronin has read the Broken Earth trilogy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay,
Sorry.
so uh, well, now I'm reluctant to spoil it, but should I spoil it?
I'm,
I won't
you know,
spoil it. But the
yeah,
thing is, one of the issues in the Broken Earth trilogy is whether an all-pervasive, world-spanning force is paying attention to individuals,
yeah.
or whether there's just the feeling that they're paying attention to individuals. And the answer to that is fascinating. But
Interesting.
vague. But one of the things, we got some good news that I can't share about some things that reminded me of Broken Earth trilogy. But one of the things you could say is like perhaps the dragon has representatives, or perhaps people can be attuned to the dragon.
Right.
Or perhaps the dragon has some very sensitive spots that doesn't like being touched, and it really notices things there.
Right.
Like,
And maybe, yeah. I like that whole notion of there being sort of a type of person that could be attuned to the dragon and get a sense of what it might be feeling. But I do wonder, how have these people come to be on this planetary dragon? Like, did they just wake up one day? Or is it, sort of Adam and Eve? Like how did that all work out?
If we're gonna go for the kaiju situation, it's gonna be whatever little girl can sing the prettiest note closest to the ears.
Right. I have a thought on this because it strikes me that maybe, what if the dragon saved a bunch of people in a cataclysmic space sort of disaster? It's large and it knows about them. It is aware of them and expended some energy in trying to save these people, and then these people kind of grew and sort of became the civilization they know now.
Oh my God! The dragon is a generation ship.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
I like
that's
sounding
fun.
that.
Suddenly it's sci-fi, but yeah.
Yeah,
so,
right,
so
right,
the dragon came because it knew that the home planet of these people was about to be destroyed, and it decided to more or less sacrifice a part of itself or some time of its life to bring these people to another place, and that takes thousands of years, and now they're living on that, and I forgot where they came from.
Well, that also asks. Sorry, I'm also interested, Ren, especially from your perspective. This is kind of coming from your brain. Who's the enemy? Like, is the enemy the world destroyer that is chasing the dragon? Or like, are there, like, what's that?
I mean, I had definitely had that thought that the dragon is trying to take these people, we're taking these people away from something.
Yeah.
I mean, there could also maybe be there could be some factions of people who either are feeling like little cooped up living on this dragon because they maybe even though it is a massive dragon, it's probably not like maybe not full planet sized, maybe just like a large moon or something. So they may feel like there's not a lot of space left and they want to get off, or maybe they want to take advantage of the dragon somehow.
See, I think here you have to follow up on the ecological metaphor, right?
Yeah.
So you have to look at it in turn, right? Because that's what's relatable to the audience, right? As well as something that like just proceeds from the theme. So I would say that there are definitely, people who are screwing with the dragon, who are in the
advantage,
and they have political power, right?
Right.
So I would say that whether or not there's something else coming, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that because it's like, I don't want to encourage a magic Elon Musk, well, we're just going to carve the dragon into little pieces and burn those pieces to fuel something that will take us to the next planet where we will also die, because that's not how colonization works. But that could certainly be so I have mixed feelings about validating it, but it's not my project.
I appreciate the
always have something. You can always have like a message within a message too. Like we know here in our real world, right, that eventually there's going to be like there's going to be a major impact event, right? It just probably won't be in our lifetime, right? That something is going to hit the ground really hard and a bunch of our descendants are going to die. Statistically, this is almost certain, right?
Yeah.
Eventually,
and this is just part of being a person in our physical universe, right? This is not only the awareness of our individual demise, but our awareness of the fact that everything we value around us is going to be destroyed, not out of any malice, right?
Just out of
but simply because that's how things work. So certainly, I think, I wonder if the enemy is not so much, a creature, but just the nature
machinations of the societal sort of pressures and people who want to leverage and exploit. I want to jump real quick to the chat because this is kind of an interesting feature or an idea that juvenile dragon-like creatures that come up from inside in places or like, I mean, an autoimmune response is very interesting in the context.
Ooh, so the the drag ancestry like emerges from the dragon and are the ones who come out of there and go like, you are doing wrong things.
They're like the bugs from Cloverfield.
Right. Yeah.
All off the
man,
that's very fascinating. I really like that. And then
that's interesting.
Yeah, David Willock talking about, we are the dragon's emissaries, we speak for it. And then this is a good question. Yeah. So this is kind of, if we're looking at this kind of eco, if the message is take care of your space or the impact that a, sort of a civilization hell-bent on consuming all the resources, what do you lose in the balance? And, while we're only here for a short time, does it all have to be miserable from start to finish? And this is an interesting question. Are people being proper custodians of the system, which gives them life? And, and do they even think about it in that, or, there could even be ideological splits where people are like, no, we are here. Let's see where this goes. We are, whatever the lore may be, maybe over time the story's gotten fuzzier or become more grandiose or whatever, but they know they're going somewhere. They don't know where. And then other people are like, do we have to go anywhere? Like, why do we have to be going somewhere? Why can't we, and sort of play around with those as almost religious sort of positions to take on the, I don't know, very interesting.
There could also be like impacts of like lost history and how the people lost the ability to communicate to the dragon over the years, and now and thus lost interest into what the dragon wants, and then kind of started to industrialize and exploit the dragon in ways that were not smart, because the dragon knows, hey, I'm flying like another 10,000 years here. If you keep doing that, you'll be dead in 5. So could be interesting angle there.
No, we did talk about sort of. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Michael or Malcolm. Sorry, I'm going to read this real fast.
One thing in setting design that this sort of suggests that an issue in setting design is a lot of the time you have people who are afraid to depict. They're afraid to depict non-sympathetic protagonists, right?
Okay.
Like that. Bad guys, jerks, those sorts of things, right?
Sure. Okay.
People who have horrible beliefs. And it's a bit of a tricky bit, because the thing is you don't certainly, you don't want to go like, we have this society of exploitative jerks on this dragon because we think ripping apart the earth, which the dragon is an allegory of, is just fantastic, right? Instead, we want to have that society, right? That an awful society, if we choose one for this project, because it's something that highlights it naturally creates conflict, right? Which drives stories, and it underlies the theme. I think a lot of the time people think that to portray goodness, they have to have some kind of setup where things are good, right? And where the people the protagonists come from are good, or that the protagonists have to be good. And none of those things are true. It is perfectly possible to like not just play the like, oh, it's like a bog standard RPG, except we're the bad guys and we're gonna cackle and we're gonna like shoot elves instead of orcs, right? Like not like, you know, not like that kind of thing, right? But it's more, it's more of a like, magic Breaking Bad scenario. You don't sympathize for these people necessarily. You don't necessarily sympathize for your own characters if you play them, but you can play awful people who are reminded of the path they are not taking by their conflicts with goodness, right? So so when you make this choice about what the society is going to be like, and from what I'm hearing, like definitely I think the way to go would probably be a bunch of different factions with a variety of perspectives. Don't be afraid of having the evil stuff. You just never need to write never write as if what they're saying is true in an objective voice, right? Which is a problem I've encountered with how people have written, and certainly like in some of the stuff I've done in the past working in horror games, right? People have made that mistake. So don't make it seem like you think it's cool, but don't be afraid to include it, is what I'm saying. So here's a player character option.
The funny thing is this kind of harkens into my idea that I was going to present in a moment. So it's a smooth transition. You go, Troy. You wanted to say something.
Well, I was just going to say that now I'm thinking about 4 or 5 different things. I want us to be open for future conversations, because I think that when we sit down with Malcolm at a different phase of this, that there will be some different feedback, and I'm very keen for that. And I also want to ensure, chat, that we're listening and will incorporate ideas and suggestions and things. And this is a new project, so we're just kind of feeling it out and kind of figuring out where we're going. One of the things that we know is that it's a giant dragon of some kind, of some scale, and that And Duke, why don't you share your idea as well?
Yeah, so my initial idea pitch was not as big as Ren's, but still freaky massive. Massive enough, like big dragon, massive enough that its head itself could, or at least its snout, its maw could contain an entire city. A bigger city, not like a giant city, but a reasonably sized city. And the idea was it has been sleeping there for a couple millennia probably, so erosion or some type of detritus accumulated on it, so it's integrated into the landscape. And the people kind of came near it and realized, okay, that's a dragon. Doesn't seem dead, but it's not doing anything. But the area is abundant with resources that we need. So what we're going to do? So they start settling around it. Eventually, they see this open maw that is always open and just gently breathing. And they decide, hey, this is a gigantic protective cave. Why wouldn't we live in this? Just like people live on volcanoes, knowing that this thing is dangerous, but also knowing there's a lot of fertile ground here, so why don't we go there? So they start living in it. The first people start settling in the teeth. They're carving out like their houses in the teeth, and the rest has to go on the tongue and build their houses there. The high society lives in the upper jaw, like in the hanging teeth there, and at some point the dragon almost awakes. And that's where obviously catastrophe struck, and people are like, oh God, what are they going to do if the dragon awakes? Everything is going to be horrible. They're like all these settlements inside and outside and on the dragon that would be destroyed. So they have like a circle of mages who cast a gigantic ritual to keep this dragon asleep.
Okay.
And they've been continuing to recite these rituals to keep the dragon asleep. But over the course of time, there has been dispute, and while the people in the city obviously want the dragon asleep because they want their city alive,
right?
Other people are coming in and saying, "Hey, you are robbing this creature its freedom and its future and its life just because of your city. I don't think that's right. We want the dragon to wake up. And you better leave before we do it. And so you have like two antagonistic forces that both have valid reasons for what they're doing. And then you have kind of to decide where you want to go. Plus, there could be a third faction that actually just wants to kill the dragon, because no matter what, it's a way too big of a danger to have this thing around alive. If that thing ever wakes up, it will wreak havoc across the entire landscape. Kill that thing while you have the chance. It's asleep. Go in there, snuff out its dragon fire, and we're gone with it. And now you have like three more or less reasonable perspectives on the situation, where it's not clear which one you want to choose. And I thought that would be interesting to explore these different angles of ambiguity and grayness.
Okay, so is there a third? The reason I'm saying a third, I want to throw the nature of the dragon, the idea of it, ideas that we're sharing here, and have people vote on it, and have the community sort of give us some feedback on the direction they'd like to see. Or we could, I love both ideas, frankly. I mean, I've been living in I've got some people, living in my teeth kind of idea.
I think Malcolm wanted to say something.
Hold on. I'll finish my sentence, and then we'll okay. Yeah. And then the other, but this idea of this giant eco, sort of this big arc ship that is really a living space dragon, is also pretty damn cool. I mean, it does also question just a bit. Are we in fantasy age, or are we, is this about, something a little more high tech? I don't know. Malcolm, go ahead.
Well, I mean, with this concept, I would say that the allegory that really comes to mind are allegories for colonialism and imperialism, right? I would assume that the dragon is more than just defensible, that it has resources that can be harvested. And resources that can be harvested means that whoever controls this area, right, has a great deal of power. And in this case, like, the first thing I would ask are these people the first people to show up, right? Because in every case of successful by the metric of the colonization, there have always been people there first, right? And their labor is typically not acknowledged, right? When we talk about like how what a great job we did building a nation where people already lived, right?
Right.
Their labor and their traditional knowledge and their willingness to enter into arrangements that later colonizers exploit are all issues there. And certainly when they have to do with resources that are fixed in a particular place, right? Also, when those resources are fixed, we have questions about trade, right? So this powerful city is going to be trading dragon resources with other cities. And definitely. That could even mean that perhaps the city has been conquered at least once, right? Perhaps there is a magic British Empire that is East India accompanying the hell out of that city, right? All of those things are factors. And also in in a lot of sort of imperialist social organizations, what getting sort of historical anthropological here, what you get, of course, is you'll have the colonial force. What they do is they will take a multi-ethnic region and they'll take one ethnicity and go, you are in charge for us, right? Mm-hmm. You keep the dragon saliva, dragon shaving, whatever. You keep that coming, right? And you get to be dictator over this subset of people who, they don't belong to your own clan anyway. So, you don't mind putting the boot on them for us, do you? Right? Except the thing is the age-old story of all of these relationships is that people don't like being conquered and colonized, and eventually they do something about it, right?
Right.
Within that, there are also questions of, people who do not necessarily support such systems, ethically, we'll end up supporting them pragmatically, right? Because, well, I mean, certainly having lived in Dragon City for a long time, I've seen, all the terrible things, the people who are begging for slivers of bone on the street and but, and the, in the people that we don't allow to become citizens, but they do all of our farming for us, which is similar to something that is very apparent here in Canada, where we have foreign workers who come in and they don't have the same rights. Right. So we have all of these issues that can easily be transposed and be used as the basis for conflict in the city. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that's interesting. Another thing that occurred to me is they could both be the same dragon, with the first one being the pre-launch dragon and the second one being the dragon, the larger dragon that has landed. Yeah. And what you're actually doing, if you screw with the gradual resource accumulation of the city scale dragon, you're keeping it from becoming strong enough to make the leap through space and save the people who are around it.
Yeah.
So if you let one dragon die, the other dragon never comes to be. Then again, you could have it be cyclical and have the giant dragon lay an egg that becomes the first dragon, right? Because the giant dragon knows it is dying. And eventually even the ecology that it spawned on its other world will come to an end, right? And basically you have to follow that cycle. And if you screw with that cycle, you're doomed.
Right.
There's a pretty awesome, actually.
I love it too. I really do a lot. Paul mentions the notion. This is interesting. That there's a big, Dave Bullock says, and that's the deep secret is that things like maybe some people know that there's a cycle happening, that one dragon dies, and whatever that might look like. It is to me an interesting plot point if you're dealing with a government that wants to obscure the nature of what you're on or in, or that's very interesting. Thoughts, friends?
Silence.
I know it's a lot to think about.
I mean, it's certainly easy to, we had corporations denying climate change for decades.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And these corporations were run by executives who, until very recently knew that they would be dead before it had any effects. And now we have an elite who know that they can use economic brute force to insulate themselves from the effects of social collapse. Right. So certainly, in any campaign, a wealthy elite able to separate itself from the consequences of what it's doing are an incredible danger. And certainly, I think now there would be a particular appetite for a fantasy setting where one could call those people to account.
Right.
Yes.
Well, here's a question.
This is how we get Lazarus.
That's right.
Do you want Lazarus? Because that's how you get Lazarus.
So here's my question for you, friends. In thinking about the experience you want to create for the player, for the participant, and the edict that you're giving to the GM as part of this, here's part of your job is to kind of uphold this narrative and sort of build around that, understanding all of the pieces at play that shift and change. One of our dragon settings is really more kind of the standard fantasy, more fantasy than the other one is a little more, it's something bigger and very interesting. I love experience. Them both. Yeah, my question then is what do we want? What are we hoping to provide the player? Are we, and I'm all for the messaging and all of that. I'm also thinking about what we want to immerse people in. Will they be coming back? Like we want to give them the feeling that so they're winning, they are changing, turning the tides, they're battling the bad guys and getting a chance to bring people to account for the things that they've done. That's a pretty powerful motivation.
Yeah,
agreed.
I mean, I think if you you would look at like if you go for like Ren's and my concept as different things. I think Ren's concept is an entire setting in itself.
That's true.
Because the world is the dragon. Whereas I think my thing could be more or less plopped onto any fantasy world. You just have, have to have an area that's big enough that can be devastated or not. But it could be happening anywhere, therefore could just be a series of adventures or an entire campaign that is happening in another setting. So it's like two different approaches to this thing.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Depending on which you want to go, that's how you're going to end up, I think.
And that's kind of why I'm asking the question. You know, sort of what are we feeling? And also, I like the idea of engaging ThursdAGE folks to allow them to kind of weigh in on a direction.
Definitely, I would set up a couple of options after we came up with whatever we gathered, and I have created on the Grad. Please join the Grad. Nice. I created a community polls channel that I will put such a poll in that will be running. Sorry, there's a fly in me. That flew just in my eye. I didn't want it. This poll will be up for a week, obviously, till the next ThursdAGE, and we'll see what the community decides, what we will pursue.
Yeah, and then so I want to do this via a kind of a Google form, and part of that is that I want a little bit of room in there for some additional thoughts. Now, here's the deal. We may get feedback that is inconclusive, which I feel like we might, just because both of these ideas are great, or a third different thing, which opens us up to a lot of, babies to cut in half. I mean, how are we going to mix all of these elements? And that might be too much and it might be too messy, but I'm interested to see where it goes. Like, the good thing about ThursdAGE is we can get a little messy. And folks in chat, your mileage may vary. You give us a great idea.
The third is that the dragon moves around, and you got to deal with that. That the dragon moves around a lot, and
right.
Oh, that would be horrible.
One of the reasons I was interested in this is because I have a setting that I was going to do for a project that I might announce today and might not, depending. That was called Emperor Kaiju. And the whole idea is that a Godzilla-like creature crashes to Earth, and it just demands to be worshipped. It conquers the world and demands to be worshipped, and it eats condensed energy, and it craps pollution, and the Earth is slowly being worn away, and it has and it is this bloodthirsty, whimsical, destructively whimsical, orange-maned creature. No political allegory is inferred. And and you have to deal with it, right? But it doesn't fit the dragon as savior or ecology elements of these. So certainly, there might be, if the dragon is an arc, you might do the picking who gets on the arc phase of it as a third option. That would be horrible, but also interesting.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And there is the continued question that we're not sure about. I really do like what Angel mentions here. And that's the notion that, a sneeze or a snore or a kind of whatever, what people do, maybe just because it's so large, it does it a little bit weirder and slower or whatever. But that's definitely it's grist for the mill. But I'm wondering too about, do the people know that they're on it or in it or of it? Like, that's the interesting question. And I feel like the funner, more textured response is some do, some don't. Some in the know, some not in the know. In either category, right? I mean, like, some know that it's alive, or some think that it's alive, and or they believe it's dead and it really is alive, or whatever. There's something to play with there, right?
It certainly I think that a society would have opinions about things that are not necessarily related to the facts, or it could be that this information is accessible, but it's like becoming a physicist by going on Wikipedia and reading a lot of physics articles. You could do that, but nobody's going to do it unless they're highly motivated, right?
Right.
So maybe the fact that we're all on dragon, like keep in mind too that it is not exceptional for these people to be living on a dragon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's their
like
life.
If we lived on a dragon, it would be like, holy crap, that is the most important thing in my life, and I better know everything about it possible. But I don't even think that about living in this town that I live in.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
So,
That's the interesting
if living in a dragon was the same in terms of its significance in my life, maybe I too would be an ignoramus who's like, yeah, sure, but
though, Malcolm, to
your not very important.
Yeah, right. To your earlier point, though, there are people that want us to think differently about the nature of the space that we're in, actively giving misinformation or sort of creating alternate facts, whatever that might be. But here's a real honest question. An expedition to the dragon's butt cheek to deal with an itch. I like that'll be a supplement. But I thought here's a question for you, for everybody. Do we want to consider theming that is far removed from the struggles of the day? Is this an escape, or is it a I'm able to sort of process the horrors of the day because in this space I am making a difference, and how do we want to approach that?
Oh, that's hard. I mean, I know that, having just shotgunned Andor and watching it for a second time, it's really revived my interest in grim gaming that is morally rewarding,
right?
And not necessarily fun in the usual sense. And that happens a lot in my house game, because I play but do not run a threefold campaign that I have been for a few years now, and a lot of bad stuff happens, and sometimes the best we can do is not have the bad stuff happen anymore, and it's a lot of the time it is creepily eerie and eerily similar to real world issues. However, not everybody wants to do that, and we don't want to do that all the time. So I often think that people can of course do as they please. I think you want a baseline of, actually, let's go back to the Andor allegory, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to start churning out Star Wars movies that are the same as Andor forever, right?
Right.
They're not going to do that. And, obviously the original trilogy and a lot of them are firmly within the pulp tradition, right? So the genre provides exactly how seriously we take this stuff, right?
Right.
And in terms of Star Wars as an IP, you have an intellectual property in which Andor, right, exists side by side with Skeleton Crew, which is Space Goonies, and doesn't take itself particularly seriously.
Sure, yeah.
So I think you want to have some baseline that meets the needs of a general audience, but you want the ability to drift one way or the other, and you want to suggest that some things are possible, right?
Right.
If you are going for broad appeal. If you're not going for broad appeal, then you just do whatever you feel like, and people either go for that ride with you or they don't. No shame on them if they don't, but those are the two approaches I see. I think.
So I'm wondering. So here's my thought on that. I'm wondering if for the exercise, okay, I'm of two minds. The first mind is I think we wait to do the poll. I think we have some marinating to do based on some of the discussions that we've had today and how important it is to define really well the theme that then can inform the setting and whether this dragon is, just kind of big, kind of real big, or super massive big, and what that changes it as far as the tone, and then to ask ourselves some questions about theming, and maybe what we'll do for a poll is to ask more basic, maybe a sort of market study that says, hey, what are you hungry for right now in the way of storytelling and TTRPG experiences? Are you looking for something what do you need? What's an itch that isn't being scratched? Just to get a sense. Now, here's the other thing too. This is a really important element of this, and that is we may get information that doesn't fit with kind of the thing that really is resonating for us, and that's okay, because sometimes people are wrong.
Do you want existential dread or whimsy?
Right.
Or do you want both?
Or do you want both? Yeah, existential whimsy, I suppose, is a new genre we've just invented.
Cosmic euphoria.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So we've got roughly about 5 minutes left, and it's put my brain in a good. It really, I mean, like even from the chat, but especially Malcolm, you're sort of helping us sort of tether to some of the initial almost maintenance or housekeeping aspects of things. Like, what is that theme, and how do we want to kind of incorporate that? I have a question for you, Malcolm. When it comes to the notion of in your brain, no doubt, you've got competing elements of things that people have said and want, things that you want to do, especially I would imagine, Malcolm, because you have been in this, in the game of games for so long that you've seen it a lot. You've seen almost everything. And so I would imagine there's a piece of you too that's very hungry for innovation and a different take and a different look and sort of beyond the remedial, I would like to learn how to make a game, which is where I'm at. How do you reconcile all of those kind of bits and pieces to come up with something, or do you not? I mean, do you really just kind of go with
it depends. So when it comes to something like Threefold, right? Threefold has a lot of stuff that is designed to, like, basically, it is a setting that is designed to allow you to run absolutely everything Modern Age is capable of in it.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
That was the mission, but it needed some kind of grounding, and eventually I crawled my way to that. But the main thing is, what do I like, right? I ask myself what I like. You have to trust yourself as someone who can arbitrate taste, right? You have to do that, because if you try just for nothing but broad appeal, then it ends up being soulless. But if you try, right? But if you try to just do what you feel like you can, what you feel, then you are pleasing at least one person, right? Now, where people screw this up is not in like getting too weird and self-involved necessarily. It's that they express it in a weird self-involved way. So you have to limit yourself to what you can actually express.
Yes.
The tools available to you in text, and also with the energy available to you, because sometimes, and this is very common in sort of the starter independent game space. People have these huge ideas, but they do not have, they don't have the time or the energy, right? Or the kind of technical grit to write them all out. Right. To do the just pounding the keys. And it's all right if you don't, but think of how you're going to express yourself when, ask yourself how many words you want to give this, right? Based on how long it takes you to do those words, based specifically on how long it takes you to do those words, because you want to, and this is what I tell freelancers all the time, you have to set a realistic schedule for yourself. And we actually have a little formula we use to calculate deadlines where, I basically go like, you have enough time to do this much work. No, don't tell me you'll do more work. You have time for this work. And I know you have time for that work. Right. And some things, but you never think in terms of like, how am I going to fill this space? Because if you're asking that, then you don't have enough room, and you don't have enough of an idea, and you need to branch it out. You need to flesh it out. So that's what I would say. Certainly if your goal, like you want to make something appealing, but you ultimately want it to be about what you enjoy. So you have one guaranteed fan, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But your job is to express that enthusiasm to a broader audience in ways that they can understand.
Sure, I like that a lot.
Like in the conversation I am having, like in the conversation we had when I talked about imperialism, like I talked about what the processes are, and I didn't tell you to go read a book, right? Because what good would that be? Or read a pamphlet, or make a cultural reference or something, right? When you are doing the creating, you are responsible for the full expression. So you take on things that you can express fully. And I guess that's what I got to say. And you can express things fully in smaller ways, which is what I'm going to use to segue awkwardly to something.
Yes.
The engine number 3.
Yeah.
Engine number 3.
So engine number 3 is very special. It's very, very special. It's extremely special. And first of all, it's twice its normal size.
Ooh,
and
nice.
second of all, and we are going to make more noise about this, it contains a complete lightweight implementation of Age, along with 4 settings.
Nice.
So basically,
Fancy.
the 3rd issue of Engine is a role-playing game.
Awesome.
That's
so
rad.
cool.
So
It's
we
a
are
role-playing
exciting.
game, and it's a role-playing game called Sage, and it was designed by Steve Kenson, with a little help from me.
Yeah.
And we have a bunch of cool settings coming for it. And we have perhaps big plans to do more with it. I'm not going to tell you what the settings are like. You got to get it when it comes out.
Right. Come on now.
Come on, folks in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody's going to recite
I'm going to spoil you.
All they want is more.
But I'm pretty excited about it, and I'm going to make more noise about that. Right?
Yeah, well, we're going to be making more noise utilizing Malcolm, and we'll be doing some. We're going to do another event. We'll have some more details coming up about that very shortly because we're very excited about it.
All right, one of the settings is kind of like The Expanse meets Green Lantern.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah,
okay,
like
you got me. You got right
I
in
don't
my
even.
heart.
I don't even like high concept pitches, and you made me do one.
Horrible.
I love that. Okay, so friends, we are 4 minutes. We're giving 4 bonus minutes and probably a couple more because there's a few things we want to say. I want to remind everybody in chat, office hours at 4 p.m. Pacific. That's what 7 p.m. Eastern. And what that means is all you got to do is go into the Atomic Think Tank. And of course, if you're wondering what the Atomic Think Tank is, it is, one of the most beautiful places on the internet. It is a place where you get to hang out, make some friends. You get to meet your GM there. You can find your players. You can find answers. You can find even more questions, resources for all of the games that we publish here at Green Ronin, and especially all of the games powered by the Adventure Game Engine. Go to atomicthinktank.com. You will see an events area or space within within the Atomic Think Tank, and you just join. It's going to be a Zoom call. We're going to talk. I think we're going to extend this conversation into that one, and of course, I want to leave room for other people. If you've got something that you bring in, maybe you have an idea, or you have been waiting for me to do something for you and I've forgotten, or maybe you've got a new idea for a kind of a live stream, or you want to share with me an update on the idea you've already shared in the past. All are welcome. So come and hang out. And it doesn't have to be just about Age. And we do a kind of a structured, like, all right, folks, it's what's on your mind, and go around and sort of share some stuff. And then we kind of naturally devolve into a free form conversation that becomes just really enjoyable. It's a lot of fun. Everyone's super polite, very nice. It's a great space to come and get your creative on. Yeah,
definitely. Now, and usually followed by After Tanked on the grad.
That's right. After Tanked, you can head over to the grad, and Duke's going to drop the link for the grad. Now, listen, you may not know this, but the official Green Ronin Discord is no longer the old one that people would come in and go, what is this ghost town all about? It's the grad. We've changed the name to the Green Ronin Atomic Assembly Discord.
Yes.
See a theme, and and so we'll be we over the course of the next few weeks are going to be continuing to kind of build and shape that space so that it incorporates all of the lovely micro communities that make up the Green Ronin community as a whole. And it's going to be a space for, like, we're going to have Malcolm come into the grad and do sort of a fireside chat. We're going to do live video discussions. We're going to run games. We're going to have events, all kinds of good stuff. And there'll be a lot of crossover between what happens in the Atomic Think Tank and what happens in the grad.
Yeah, it will be very grad. It will be very grad. Haha. It will be very rad. We'll be glad about the grad being rad.
Yep,
and
right.
yeah, we already started having a little changes because today was the first day we incorporated the live chat from the grad into the stream.
Here's a good point. You know, Stan is a big, good friend of ours. He does random encounters at 9 Eastern, so you can hang out with us and then go over there and hang out with Hal. I said, hang out with Stan. If you'd like to hang out with Hal, you can as well. We're gonna actually, that is somebody we're gonna have come hang out with us because, you know, Hal's been doing layout for TTRPGs for before there was paper. Like, he was chiseling stuff
into dragon scales.
He's always been there.
That's right. He has done it all. And so having him come and kind of chat, especially for folks who might have a little ACA interest, you know, maybe you're in the Age Creators Alliance and you want to kind of get a little insight into and how to kind of take things to your next level, right? Awesome. Malcolm, thank you so much for hanging out.
Yes.
Was absolutely, but we, you know, as per the norm, we're not done with you yet. So maybe we can invite you. As we start to sort of crystallize around our idea, I think that looking at this project at the next phase will be very illuminating for all of us as well. Would you mind coming back?
Yeah. Sure, I'd be happy to pop by. While I'm here, I just want to give a shout out to the 5th season team. The preview PDF went out to backers not too long ago.
That's right.
And that is a project I got involved in late. I just did a little additional work toward the end. So shout out to Joe Carricker, to Hiromi Kota, to Steve Kenson, and to Tanya DePass, to Monty and all the other folks who did fantastic work on that. So it's just that I've had a chance to digest more of it, and I'm just very, very pleased with the work my colleagues have done. So
I am too. Awesome. Brilliant work, and also boil bugs for everyone is what I say.
For everyone.
For everyone.
Yay.
And this also reminds me that you have 4 days left to get you some bundle magic.
Yes.
Right here.
Get the bundle magic.
Yeah. We've got, for $19.95, you get the ThursdAGE 2nd edition core rulebook. You get Techno Fantasy, and then you get 3 ThursdAGE 2nd edition adventures. I think we are also including
and you'll be all set up when we start talking about the Stranger Shores and Velosia. What's Velosia? Yeah. We'll tell you that eventually, and we'll describe some ancestries that I have made that haven't been released yet.
Wow! Nice. And so, you know, if you want to be ready for that info, you better get the bundle and bundle up and
get the bundle.
Yeah, only 4 days.
Fantasy is so fresh.
4 days rather, 7 hours, 48 minutes, and 39, 38, 37. I'm just going to do that for 4 days. No. So head on over there, drop the link in chat. If you're watching this on demand, just hit the chat. You'll click the link or type in bundle of holding, and you'll find us hanging out there for the next 4 days.
Yes.
But only that, and then it goes away. That's like, I think this is like almost, it's like $88 or $80 plus of good stuff. Yeah, $88.
What are the adventures again? Can you?
Yes, I can. The adventure is the Lair of the Horn Giant. Menace of the Grave Warrens, and Return to the Valley of the Whispering Titans.
Oh, cool.
The longest name of any book ever published in the
I
TTRPG.
love it. I love the name. I know that it's long, but it has this pulpy feel to it from yesteryear. I love this. When I think of Enid Blyton books from way back that had like these titles, like amazing. It's chef's kiss.
Well, in that case. In the case of Valley of the Whispering Titans, we took one of the settings from Layers, and we basically doubled it in size and updated it to second edition, and added new stuff. So, and so the idea is, and we're doing this for another one too. We're coming out with an update of High Falls Swale, which some of you may remember was in the back of the first edition of Fantasy Age, but the same kind of thing where you get introduced to the location, you go through the initial thing, and then you have an opportunity to come back. And I wanted to do this because one of the things that often doesn't get a lot of support, but is so commonly done by GMs, is reusing locations, touchstones, and individuals from published adventures.
Yeah.
For their own purposes, right? So I wanted to present them for that. But the other reason I wanted to try to scroll down is... Techno Fantasy is in that bundle, but there is an adventure that's not in the bundle that would be great for Techno Fantasy fans, because we released an adventure to support Techno Fantasy called Dirge of Valoros.
That's right.
Right?
That is right.
And that's in our web store, and that's a drive-through. I was just thinking about it today, and I just thought, well, if I get a chance, I'll make sure it gets a little love. So,
so we had the author of Dirge of Valoros on this very program, and and so that would be Gary Asselford, and he's an old friend of mine as well, pre TTRPG world. But check that out. I've got a link to the blog post to give you a little detail, and then
I shot some emails back and forth with him just today.
Nice, he's a good dude. I really like him a lot.
Good dude.
Friend,
I got the link. Oh, you got the link too? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I linked him to the blog post just so they can kind of get a little background on it. And
yes.
Yeah, it's super, super fun. All right. Hey, friend, thank you so much. Ren, thank you. You're going to be hanging out with us for the foreseeable, and I really appreciate that about you. And, of course, Duke, all the work that you do in the community and helping keep our sort of re-envisioned, imagined ThursdAGE on the rails. I do appreciate that. And, Malcolm, I welcome your chaotic professorial nature at any point in time, like where you're just an absolute delight. And really,
thank you.
You have what began as a sort of, hey, let's make a silly dungeon, has become something a little deeper, and I think that's okay.
It was so funny because we started, hey, let's make a battle map, and now we are at, I guess this is a campaign setting. So it is sort of the pain of development. Yeah, exactly. And so this very interesting, and I do as well. So, friends, we'll be continuing this conversation. Is it next week?
Now o'clock? No, we'll be going into office hours. I think we're looking. We're a little late. What time do I have off? Do I have office hours down at 4 Pacific?
You had it down in about 45 minutes. So if you want to shift that, that's okay, I guess. Yeah, no, we'll be fine. So head over to atomicthinktank.com, look for the events, click on the Zoom link, join us. It'll be fun. Bring some ideas and thoughts about this, and know that it's a lovely bit of controlled chaos. So if you're coming for some piece of maybe not your meeting, but if you're coming for some creative chaos and fun and people who are very kind and some great conversation, then this is all about you. All right, friends. Amazing.
I think on that note, go ahead, Duke.
Yeah, one thing, since after this ended, the YouTube chat will probably disappear. But since we now have the chat piped into the grad, if you want to catch up while you're watching this later, the chat is there, so you can read all the things that were talked about. And if you then want to join into the discussion about all of this and later into the poll, you can definitely do that.
I love that. Yeah. So just so folks the chat does stick around on YouTube, but not in other places. So yeah. So, but lovely. And you'll be seeing even more integrations into the grad as we move forward. I'm very much excited about that. And very thankful for the three of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Call it a day for at least this space, and then we'll continue the
Yes.
conversation in office hours. Thank you so much, Frank.
Amazing.
Hey, chat.
Thank you, everyone.
You are the best, and I think you're the best chat that any chat, any
Yes.
live stream has ever had. And so, look forward to
Unequivocally.
conversations.
We're so blessed.
Bye bye.